All right. Thanks for coming, Joe. We're going to talk about functions today and how to make those, what all the different parts are, and then we're going to go through, practice, make a little vacuum. Um, okay, let's see. People are trying to jump on.
Time to run and get a drink of water.
Yeah, run.
Okay. All right, I'm back.
Okay. Looks like Sarah's here too, but she's not on the voice chat, so I'm not sure what's going on. But, okay. Let's just start out by going through this
Oh, there she is.
picture. Oh, can you hear me, Sarah?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay.
Yay.
So I didn't start yet. We were just about to, but I'm sharing this picture that I made today. So what's inside this box, is what just what a basic function looks like. And a function or a method, those mean the same thing. Function and method are two different words for the same thing, and that just means it's a block of code that does something. Okay, so a variable, if we remember, a variable is just a line of code that remembers some kind of data, right? So it's some type of data, and then it has a value. So a function or a method, which I'm usually going to call that a function, probably just because that's what I call it, but other people will say method, and that means the same thing. And that just means it's a block of code that's going to do something. And so the different parts of, oh,
Oh my gosh.
somebody needs to mute themselves. Sounds like. Okay. So the different parts of a function are, you first decide the scope, which is either public or private. So public means that you can access this function from outside of the script that you're in, and private just means that it's something that's only going to happen inside that script. So if we had like a script about movement, right? We might have a public um, script that has access to like the keyboard controls and things, but then we might have a private one in there that just deals with like how the numbers are working so that you move at the right speed or whatever. So the next thing you do is you give it a return type, which usually in this, what we're going to do for the purpose of this course, we're just going to use void usually, which just means it doesn't have a return type. It's just a generic function. Um, but if you did put something there, like you could put int there or float or a game object or whatever. But if you do that, then that means that you want it to return um, some data of that type. So then you'd have to put a statement at the end that says like return and then a number or something. But we're not we'll get to that if we ever need that, then I'll explain that better. But for now, you're usually just gonna say void there, and then you give it a name, and you can name it whatever you want. Um, the the way that people normally write C sharp is they do it Pascal cased, which means the first letter is capitalized and then the first letter of every word in the sentence is capitalized. That's Pascal cased. Um, Camel cased is how you usually do everything else in code, and that's where the first letter is going to be lowercase, and then the rest you uppercase the first letter of the word. So just so that you'll be able to tell at a glance that something is a function, then we just capitalize the first letter. And then you put parentheses, and the parentheses are here because sometimes we might put things in this parentheses if we want to like feed it information, and that information is called the parameters or arguments. Um, but we probably won't get to that for a little while. But that's something you can do, and then you can like use that information in the code part, and then you put curly brackets, which is where you put everything that this function is going to do. You put in between the curly brackets. Okay. So let me open up a script. Does everybody see my screen?
Yeah, it says it's paused right now.
Oh, okay. Let me.
I think you switched screens.
Okay, let me share. Screen 1. Let's try this. Okay, do you see Unity now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna just use a vacuum as an example here. So I'm gonna create a script called vacuum. Okay, and I'm going to double click on that, open up this script in Visual Studio Code, and for now I'm just gonna delete all this stuff in the middle. So the main script, when you create a script, you want to keep this using stuff at the top. These are the different libraries, and then you need this public class, the name of your script, and the mono behavior. And sometimes we'll change this, but for now we're just going to leave that how it is. And then make sure that you still have those two curly brackets, because then everything in this vacuum has to be done inside these curly brackets. Okay, so somebody unmute yourself and tell me something that a vacuum does, or something about a vacuum that we can adjust or change or do. And we're going to make a function.
They suck.
Okay, so the vacuum needs to suck. So let's have a public void, and we're going to just call this suck. Okay, this is going to be the function. It's going to be called suck, and we're going to do parentheses, curly brackets. And then let's just say when this is working, I'm just going to debug.log a message here, and it's just going to say sucking. Okay, so what else can a vacuum do, or what?
Supposedly have no gravity?
What?
Supposedly have no gravity or something in the middle of it? I feel like I read that somewhere.
That would be way complicated. I was thinking like we can plug it in, right?
Oh,
So
plug it in.
we're just gonna build a vacuum here. So let's say one of the
It turns on and off.
oh, turns on and off. That's a good one. So let's say public void has turn on. We'll just say turn on is the function. And actually we can we can make a variable up here. So above all this, let's say we have a public bool, which is a bool is like a true or false statement. And we're going to call this has power. Okay, and it's going to be set to true. And you can set a bool to true or false. So we have a variable. This is a variable like we did last time. And so turning on or off, we'll say turn on or off. Okay, so this is going to be the on and off switch. So do you guys see how like these functions are exactly the same? I set them up exactly the same, and it's really easy just to like say public void, name it, parentheses, curly brackets, and then we're going to do something in the middle. So one thing we can do inside of a function is we can do an if statement. Okay, so we can say like if it has power, then do something, and if it doesn't, then do something else. So let's say if we push the on or off button and it has power, then we're going to turn it off, and if it doesn't have power, we're going to turn it on. Okay, so I'm just going to build an if statement here. So an if statement, you just do if, and then you have parentheses and curly brackets. And so inside the parentheses, we have to put something that we want it to check for to see if it's true. So we say if has power is true.
You could just say if on.
Right, you could.
Has
But-
powers in a function.
So
Oh.
right now I have a variable that says has power, right? So
Oh, okay.
so I'm going to use that because it already has a true or false. And so, I mean, we could do it that way. We could say is on. Maybe we should do that. But just if that makes more sense to you. So is on and
It
is
might not
true.
to everybody.
So if it's on, then I'm going to set. Oh, I spelled that differently, so has to be the same. If it is on, then I'm going to set my is on to false. And we can say else if, and do the same thing. Else if is on equals false. So if it equals false, and another way to do this, if you want it to just be a false, you can just put an exclamation point, and that just means the opposite, like negative. So if, it means not. So an exclamation point before a phrase means it not. so if it is not on, then we're going to change, we're going to say then is on is going to change to true. Okay, so that's going to be a really easy one to do. And so we could also do another if statement inside the sucking one and say if it's not on, then it can't suck, right? So I'm going to say if, and we'll just say if it is on, then we're going to debug.log sucking for now. Oops. And else, And so you can do on if statements, you have if, else if, and then you can just do else. And else will just mean every other option. So if these two options didn't work, then we could have an else that would just capture every other possible outcome of this true or false thing. But since this is just a true or false, then there's only going to be two options. But so I'm going to say else. And we don't need for an else you don't need the parentheses because it just means everything else. There. So else it's going to say set this up with parentheses, then we're going to say vacuum isn't on. Okay, so does anybody have questions so far of like how you would make a function?
I have kind of a thing I'm a little confused about. It looks like there are parentheses on the bottom if else instead of brackets. Are those supposed to be brackets? Because they look like parentheses.
Down here?
No. Like below. A little lower. No. There. Yeah.
Yeah, so the if has parentheses and curly brackets, and then else if has parentheses and curly brackets. So the stuff inside the parentheses is what it's going to check to see if it's true. And then the stuff inside the curly brackets is what it's going to do if that's true.
Oh, okay. The quality of the video does look like a parentheses to me, but
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could draw it here better maybe.
it's okay, I think.
I could just copy it over just so that you get a visual of it. So if I have all this, I just there. Can you see that?
Way to expand our screen in the middle where you're showing this. This stuff is so tiny.
Well, that's why he's showing.
I know,
us.
but if there was a way that we can make it bigger and just see it live too,
So
maybe.
so the function, I'm not sure how to make it bigger. I can look into that for next time, how to make it zoom in on a part of my screen or something. But the function itself is the public void. My name of the function is turn on off. Oh, which I didn't capitalize it. I'm gonna do that. Which it doesn't have to be capitalized, but it helps you look at it at a glance and know that it's a function. And then we've got an if statement, an else if, and then ending it with another curly bracket. And that's all my function is. So if we wanted to see this work, you can save this. And all right, so let's just create a cube. You can hit F on your keyboard to zoom into something that you've made. So this is going to be my vacuum. I'm going to name it vacuum up here. And then I'm going to give it the vacuum script. All right. And now I want to have a button so that I can turn it on and off. So I can just to make this simple so we're not getting into too complicated of stuff here, I'm just going to go to Game Object, UI, and choose Button. And then let's go find it out here. And this is an old button. So this button is going to be my on and off switch. So we'll just name it on off button. And then on my button I have an on click thing. So when I click the button, it's going to do whatever I tell it to right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for my cube, which is my vacuum. So I'm going to put the vacuum there. The button is going to look for the vacuum, and then since that function I made was public, you see it right here. If it was private, then you wouldn't see it. So I have a suck and a turn on and off. So if these were set to private, they wouldn't show up on this list, and we wouldn't be able to get to it. But I can set it here. So say turn on and off, and I want to actually I'm gonna make a debug.log thing in here too that just says is on or is off, so that we can see what's happening when I hit this button. I'm gonna paste this down here and say vacuum is now off. Vacuum is now on. So after I set it to false, I said vacuum is off, and after I set it to true, then vacuum is now on. So I'm going to save that, and we can go to the console, hit play, and my cube fell because it had gravity turned on, I guess. But if I hit the button, now the vacuum's off, and now the vacuum's on. Now the vacuum's off, now it's on. Do you guys see how that worked? So I'm using both. The button was only accessing this one function, right? And if I wanted to call a function inside of my other function, then I can do that by doing this. So when it turns on, then I'm going to call my suck function, okay? I'm going to say suck, do the parentheses, and do a semicolon. So now when I turn on, when I turn it on and when I turn it off, I'm gonna call this function just so you can see what it does. So I'm gonna suck. So every time I hit the button, it's gonna turn it on or off, and after it turns it on or off, it's gonna call the suck button, and we'll see what it does. So I'm gonna save this. All right, I'm gonna clear this, hit play, and I turned it off, and the vacuum isn't on. Turn it on, and now it's sucking. Turned it off, and now it isn't on. Turned it on, and now it's sucking. So that's basically how a function works. And so we can there's either events or buttons or things that can trigger when a function gets called. Like you can have, say, when your character runs into a wall or runs into a coin or something, then you could have it trigger the function called pickup coin or something, and then it'll do whatever's in that function. Or in this case, I just have a button that I'm pushing, and it's calling the first function, and then after my function does something, I have it calling my other function, which does something else. So we could just keep on doing this. We could have, after it says debug.log, we could call another function and just keep on doing this and just keep on having it do things. But that's everything that I wanted to cover in this. So for today, just to get that idea across. So if anybody has questions, then you can ask them now. also, if you guys want to try this on your own, try opening up Unity and try to create a function and put an if-else statement in there. Try to just set up like how I did. So you have a function, have at least one variable, and for an if-else statement, a bool is good because you can just make that true or false. So this is should be a pretty simple example. Did you have something, Sarah, that you wanted to say?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm just wondering what it means to have it be true or false. Like, what does that mean relating to a function or a button?
So true. That's just so true or false belong to like a boolean, which is what this is. So a bool is just a data type that has an on or an off. So it's basically a bool is like a light switch. So you can either set the only two things that this thing can be are true or false. But for example, in the if statement, you could say if. So let's say we have a public int called number 1 and it equals a 1, okay? Then in my if statement I could say if number 1 is greater than 0, then do something. And since 1 is greater than 0, it means it's true, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I could say if it is if number 1 is less than 1, then this is false. So if this is false, then this part of the code isn't even going to run. So this part, everything inside this curly brackets on the if statement is only going to happen if whatever's inside this parentheses is true. So you can set up whatever you want. You can say whatever you want, but if it's false, it's not going to happen. If it's true, then it is going to happen. So if it's false, then it'll go to the next thing. Like
So with the bool, it's just saying not necessarily true or false in the sense of, I mean, I guess you just showed how it can be like literally true or false, but just with if and else being those are the only two possible outcomes for it, is either or.
Yeah. So
Okay.
like, and you could have like 10 else ifs on here. Like we could say else if whatever's here and do this and just keep going and just have a whole bunch of these. After a while, there's other ways that you can make this more efficient than just doing a ton of else if statements. But you can do this, and then finally at the end you can just say else do this. Like if you don't want any more options, you just want to say every other thing is going to be this. If you don't have this else statement, you could get an error because it'll say, well, nothing was true, you know. And this else just means like if nothing is true and none of these were true, then this is the default thing that you're going to do. And then but you could say whatever you want in here just to make it a true or false statement. And then remember, you can change, like I said up here, like when I created this variable, this is called declaring the variable the first time that you create it. But I can change the value of this variable at any time just by in my code saying is on is now false, and then it changes. So now if after this point, after I changed it false, if I was to say debug.log is on, then it would say it's false. Does that make sense?
I think so.
So let's see. If here, instead of printing this message, I just say is on, right? I can just print that variable name. I can just say that. And I'll just print it there both times. So when I hit the button, then it's going to, I'm going to delete all these extra else if statements too. So whenever I hit the button, it's going to tell us either true or false, okay? Because that's what, it's going to change this. Because this one turns it false and this one turns it true. I say save this. And I'm just going to make sure that I didn't do anything weird. Okay. I think it should still work. So hit the button, false. So is on is false. This time, now it prints true. So, does that answer your question?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How do I apply it to the objects again? I was a little behind when you did that, so.
You just, whatever object you want to put it on, you can either say add component and search for the name of your script. Like mine is vacuum, so I could just click it there and it'll add it. Or you just come over here. I'm going to minimize these things so there's room. And then you just drag the script onto it from your project folder. So
Okay.
I have my vacuum object, that cube selected. And so what it's showing here is the stuff, it says the inspector for the vacuum. So then I can just grab the script and drag it on to there and it adds it. So now I have two. Any other questions about this? Do you guys want to try to do it and let me know if you run into any issues? And I can even just leave this screen up so you could copy it if you want.
Yeah.
Just remember that lines of code, so the function itself, remember that didn't have any semicolons, right? So this is not like a line of code that, it's not a statement. Whenever you end a statement, you need to end it with a semicolon. But this is just an actual function, which has curly brackets. So then everything you put inside the curly brackets is either going to also have curly brackets or it's going to end with a semicolon. So the if statement has curly brackets, right? But then all these other lines that I did in here end with a semicolon. So those are things that you might run into that might give you errors if you forget to put a semicolon at the end of one of these lines. And just, I believe this is just called a statement. Just one line of code is a statement. And then things that end with curly brackets are functions. So you can have functions inside of a function. So this if is kind of a function. And we could create a function inside of another function instead of having it call a function. So this one, I have two functions and then it's calling this other function. But if I only, which is a good thing to do, set it up this way so that you don't have to write the same code twice, right? But instead of doing that, I could, instead of doing this, I could just run grab this whole thing and put it inside of this if statement. But this is something I wanted to show you. So, sorry, one more thing. The whole idea of scope, like I showed you on the function, right? The function is either public or private, and that's the scope. That's where you can access it from. Everything has a scope. So variables have a scope, public or private, but they also, like if you created a variable inside of a function, so say here I did a int, and call it math, I don't know, and give it a value of 4 or something. I guess I can't call it math. Bottle. I don't know. Well, it should be letting me make it inside this. So what's this saying? Oh, it's just turning it that color because I'm not using it. So if I create a variable inside of my function, then I wouldn't be able to access bottle, so this int that I made, from my other function because its scope is I guess it's the highest level of curly brackets that it's in, right? So I'm inside of this curly brackets, and so I can, inside here I could say bottle equals 5 now, or whatever. But I couldn't access it from here. Like if I put it over here, bottle equals 11. Like here, it's gonna, like, it doesn't even see the variable. It says generate a variable called bottle, because it doesn't even know that there's a variable because it's inside of this other function. So I would have to create another variable and call it bottle. Say int bottle equals 5 or whatever. So this bottle and this bottle are different bottles because they're made in different functions. But instead of doing that, I could just create a public one, or one outside of the functions, do it up here. Even if it was a private bottle, equals 0 or whatever. Then now I could use this inside of anything that I want that's inside this same script.
So I'm getting an error that says the name is on does not exist in current context.
Did you make a public variable called isOn?
Yeah.
Did you spell it the same way in everywhere that you wrote it? Like with
Oh shoot. Nope. I didn't capitalize the I on one of them. Whoops. Okay. Should. Wait. Is on.
So next time, if you guys are able to get this stuff, just like the basic functions, setting up a button and all that, then next time we could probably make a pretty simple kind of like a game with this. because so far this is basically coding. You create variables, and then you create functions, and then you call those functions, and everything else is just whatever you want to do inside that function. And that's it. Now you guys know how to code.
I miss how you make the button actually change the thing.
Okay. So click on your button,
Okay.
and then
Oops.
down in your button there's an on-click thing down. Do you see my screen?
Let me find that. On click. Okay.
Okay. So then there's an object. Let me delete. So it says none object.
Yeah.
This is where you want to put the object that has the script with the function that you want to do.
Okay.
So you can either click on the little dot, and then it'll open up this search thing that you can search for the object. But I think it's easier just to drag it from your scene over here in your outliner,
Right.
and just drag it over there into that box. And then you just
Okay.
look for the function in this thing that says no function. So it has the name of all the scripts that are on it. So we have a script. I have a script on it called vacuum. And then if I
Okay.
go inside that script, then it has the name of all the functions that are in that script.
Oops. And which one do I want? The
Whatever your script
oops.
or function is called.
Turn on off. I don't know. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's try this. Nice. All right. It works.
Can you go back to your code page?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. I got mine working.
Okay, cool. Is anybody else working on it and need some help? So Joe, something you could try now is try to make make your own function and just practice making a function from scratch without looking at anything and having it do something, even if it's just printing like debug.log something.
Yeah.
Did you get this part, Joe, where I called another function? So this is how you can call a function. So like
Yeah. I had put that in mine. So.
okay. So if we started out with those like the start function, that it automatically has when you create a script, it says void start. It looks like this.
Right.
Well, it should. Why isn't?
So when you're creating a new function, you always type public, right? Or private.
Yeah, I do at least. If you don't, then I think it automatically makes it public, but I could be wrong. So I just always write something there just to make sure.
Okay. I try to make it a
Oh,
new
it's,
script.
this is because I accidentally put it in my my other script. So let me show you this. So if I wanted I'm going to put my start function back here at the top. So I have a public void start. And if I wanted something to happen right when I start the game, right, then I can put it inside this start function, which is what we did last time. So if I want it to automatically turn off my vacuum when I hit start, then I could say, first I want to make sure that it's on, so that when I hit start, I'm going to call this function and it's going to turn it off. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm going to say is on equals true, just so that I make sure that's always, like right when I start the game, it's going to set it to true, and then it's going to call the turn on off function like that. And then it will set it to false. So save that. And then when, like right when I hit the play button, then it's going to do this stuff.
Okay.
Dallin, are you there? Do you need any assistance?
I'm figuring it out. I am just trying to figure out how to import like the game object. I just don't know how to. How do you do like the button? How do you import the button?
So at the top of the screen, it says game object, and then just go down to UI and hit button.
Oh, okay. I was looking at 3D objects and I didn't see anything.
Oh, the UI means user interface, so that's like the text stuff that can show up on the screen. So like when we do a score for the game, then it'll be a text, like a UI text. Buttons are going to be buttons, or we can have images, like if we wanted to have like your character's avatar or whatever up in the corner, then we could have a UI image. If we do an image in one of these other things, like we'd have to create like a 3D plane or something and then put the picture on that plane. But if we want it to just show up on the screen, like as part of the user interface, then we have to
Zero.
What?
Sorry.
Did you need help, Mom?
No, talking to somebody here. Sorry, I forgot I was unmuted.
Okay.
What's a bool again?
A bool is just a variable type that is a on-off switch. So it's a true or false switch.
Oh, okay.
So it's always either true or false. It has to be one of those two things. So it's a thing that you can have just as like a checker, so that when you're like say you don't want your character to be able to jump if he's not touching the ground, right? So like you don't want him to be able to double jump, then you could have a bool that says is touching ground, and have that set to true, and as soon as he jumps, then have it set to false. So when he's not touching the ground, then it's false. And when he lands, it sets it back to true, so that it knows that your jump function can check, like, is he touching the ground? Yes. Then we can let him jump, kind of thing. But you kind of use those all over the place, so it's a good one to remember. There's not very many like basic variable types, so other than these ones like bool, int, float, and string, then we're gonna have to actually use things like we could create a public button. We could do that. Public button and call this on off button, and just don't even put a value there, just call it that. And then I might need, actually, it's like we could do that, and then inside of our function we could have a like if the button is pressed kind of thing. We can get into that another time, but you could have like a public button. You could have an easy one that we could do right now is a public text and call it status text or something. And then in our function we could say, instead of debugging it, we could say text.text. So the text object and then the text component of the why is it doing that? I think I might need a Unity engine.ui. Let's see if that works. Okay, I think that did it. So to use a UI element, you need to use the using Unity engine.ui library thing. So we can do this. Text.text. Oh, it's not text. It's status text. That was the name of it. So status text dot text equals sucking, right? And I can do that same thing for all of these debug.logs. So status text dot text. Maybe I'll do two. So I'm going to do an on-off text. So status text and an on-off text. And my status text is going to be this one, my sucking, and my on-off is going to be my on-off text. So I'm going to copy that. You set this to vacuum is off. On-off text dot text. So the first one is going to be the game object of text, and then the lowercase text is the component on that game object. So if I show you that.
Wait, I totally zoned out for like the past long time because I was working on making a function.
I was just showing that instead of debugging, like doing the debug.log, we can make this text actually show up in the game.
Okay.
So I had to do using Unity engine.ui up here at the top in those using lists. And then I can do a public text, uppercase text, name my text. And then when I want to change what that text says, I say the name of that text that I made, dot lowercase text equals, and then type something in quotes. So I'm going to save this, and I'll show you what this does. So now I can go back to Unity, and I'm going to create a UI text, and I'll create two of those. Okay. And then in my vacuum, I made those two public text things, so I have two spots to put a text. So I can drag these in there. And now if I hit play and hit my, oh, why didn't that work? Vacuum is off. Vacuum isn't on. So what did I do wrong here? Status text dot text if I changed this. When I was showing Sarah that thing. Let's see if that works. We can get rid of these bottles and stuff we don't need. I'm gonna save that. Go back to Unity. The bottle does not exist. Did I put bottle somewhere else? Oh, right there. Okay, so the error went away. Let's see what this does. Okay, so the button is changing the sucking one. For some reason my vacuum is staying off. So vacuum is off. Oh, because I didn't change what the text says, so it's just doing the same thing. There. To actually change the text. So file, save that. There. So now instead of printing it, then it's just showing up in the game.
How do I make a button again? Sorry.
Go to game object, UI, and button. And that's also where you can put a text.
Oh, okay.
And this is stuff that like isn't gonna be usable. Like you can't move it around in your game, but you can move it around here. And this window shows the game screen. So we can put these where we want on the game screen, and then when we hit play, then they should show up there. So that's how we can, like, later on we can put like our score up here and have the number changing by changing the text and things like that. So anyway, covered a lot today, so I think I'm gonna jump off unless you guys have questions. I could stick around for another 10 minutes maybe if people have questions and want me to troubleshoot with you. But I'm gonna say that's all all the new stuff I'm gonna say today. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Spencer.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks. I'm just gonna check if this new function I made will do anything. I just realized yeah, I don't know if this is enough. Let me how do I change the text on the button to say something else?
So it doesn't say button.
Yeah.
If you click on your button, then there is a text object on the button, and you can change it there. Do you see that?
I'm looking for it. Where was that? Gold canvas.
And you can also change like the size of your button.
I can't zoom out of my button enough to see anything but the very corner of it.
So select it and then hit F, and it will focus your camera on it, and then you should be able to scroll out.
Oh.
There it is. Can't add component because the script class cannot be found. Make sure that there are no compile errors and that the file name and class name match. Huh?
Oh, mine says the same thing.
Did you guys do the using? Are you guys trying to do the text thing?
I'm just trying to use the debug log. I'm trying to make it say something when I click on a button. Oh.
The class doesn't exist.
Wait, let me. Okay. Yeah, let me try it again 1 second. Can't add script component because the script class cannot be found. Make sure that there are no compile errors and that the file name and class name match. Yeah, I'm not sure what that means. What am I missing?
Oh, did you change the name of your script after you made it?
No.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, I made a new script.
So the name of your script, since my script is just called vacuum, right here where it says class, this has to be the same name as what your script is called.
Okay, mine is, but there's not spaces in it, so I think I'm gonna have to rename it.
Renaming a script after you create it is a bad idea because sometimes it'll break it. So you might have to just make it like copy the stuff that you did into like a notepad and then create a new script and name it something and then just paste your code back into it or something. Sometimes I have to do that, but I'm trying really hard not to change the name. And don't ever change this inside the script either. That's why I named
And
it.
is it
What?
is it the name of the script that we would put underneath the debug.log or the name of the function?
The name of the script is only going to be at the top of your script for now. So
Okay.
These functions are going to be, you're going to name that something different. You don't want to name it, I don't think you can name it the same thing as your script is called. Or you'll get an error.
What in the world is happening?
Just
This says else cannot start a statement.
Well, you have to have an if. Else is like, you do if, and then if is not, it checks if, and if is false, then it checks the else. Does that make sense? Like, and you have to have if you have else ifs, they have to be before the else one. So
I just have two. I have one if and one else.
okay, and if it has else, then you don't put parentheses. Did you do parentheses?
Afterwards?
So if needs parentheses with something to check if it's true, and else if needs the parentheses to check if something is true, but else doesn't.
So you mean after else don't put parentheses?
Right.
Just the curly bracket?
Yeah.
I think I messed up.
Now there are different squiggles. What is happening?
Okay, what's it saying?
Now the squiggly line is a yellow for part of it and then red. Let's, how do I... There's so many red things now that, oh, here we go. The type or namespace name D could not be found. Are you missing a using directive or an assembly reference?
So that would be this stuff up here. So if you are trying to use text or a button, then you have to have this thing that says using engine Unity engine.ui.
It says using Unity engine at the top.
Yeah, but you have to make another one that says using Unity engine.ui. If you're trying to use text or a button from your script. So here I'll paste that in the chat so you can see. You can just copy that line and put it at the top of your code with those other using things.
Okay, I added that, and I don't think that got rid of any of the squiggly lines. Holy cow, why are there so many?
Did you accidentally delete a curly bracket or something? So it doesn't know where it's supposed to end part of the function. If you want to, you can share your screen and I can look at it.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna end the recording though. So.
Okay.